as an update on this. But for now, it's bleak and it's sad, and it's not the first time that is happening. There are actually older articles in Mongabay from last year as well, when drilling and the sound from it has been causing problems to the marine animals. So this is just an ongoing problem there, just like I think the palm oil plantations in Borneo with the orangutan. So um, there needs to be a stop. There needs to be more hue and cry. The government needs to be more active about not letting such projects go on. But yeah, it's just sad and bleak right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Um. Yeah. It's that.
Okay, yeah. I think we'll go on to the next topic.
Mhm.
Um, it's from Nepal. It says conservationists are wary of Nepal's plan to relocate blackbucks. Nepal plans to relocate 18 critically endangered blackbucks from Shuklafanta National Park to Tikoli, a corridor forest near Chitwan National Park. The move, involving 6 males and 12 females, aims to establish a new population and protect the species from localized disasters. However, the plan faces significant criticism from conservationists. Ecologists raise concerns about Tikoli's suitability, noting its humid, monsoonal climate and susceptibility to flooding, which contrasts with the blackbuck's preference for arid, short grassland environments. Tall grasses in Tikoli could limit food availability and hinder predator detection. Furthermore, the area's high densities of tigers and leopards could pose a substantial predation risk, with officials acknowledging that leopards might breach enclosure fences. The translocation highlights an overall tension between conservation goals and ecological challenges. And I think this is where it becomes really tricky with conservation. Like, you might want something good, but you might not be doing it how it should be done. So here the blackbacks don't belong in the humid climate with the tall grasses, but they feel like if they relocate them, and that was they're critically endangered, that if they relocate them, that would be a good move for the blackbacks, and they might have more area and they might thrive. But they don't look at the negativity of it, that they might actually not thrive, that might actually lead to all of these 18 blackbacks dying. One, maybe because of starvation. Two, because the tigers and the leopards can prey on them very, very easily.
That is another thing. Like this is, I think we have covered a couple of stories like this, like relocations and you know,
Am
mm,
I audible?
yes. Um, yeah. So sorry. We I think we have covered a few similar stories where about relocations. I think we covered rhino relocation, some hippo relocations, and all the other relocations that goes on. Um, Relocations are really taxing uh, on the animal, and I think especially in a situation like this where it's we are sort of taking a gamble on the future of these. Not only
I mean,
the
this is stupidity. This is not a gamble. Like, when you know they
mm,
don't belong in such kind of environments, to relocate them is utter stupidity. I'm
mm,
sorry, but there's no other way to put it.
mm. And we like humans as a species, we are guilty of that particular fact that we we sort of make these sweeping decisions, and generally it comes to bite us back. um
Yeah, and then we'll call, like, if the blackbacks kind of thrive and they overpopulate, then we'll say, oh, invasive species. And then we would be the ones who actually introduce them. And all the invasive species across the world are introduced by humans. And we refuse to call ourselves invasive, but we'll call everything else invasive. And it
mm,
all happens because we think that it's a good idea to somehow take this organism or animal from here, transport it to another place. Sometimes, obviously, you can't help it because the mice, how they traveled was through boats and there was no way to account for them. But a lot of times it's been very intentional. And in this case, also, the relocation is very intentional because they're saying, oh, this antelope will have a new habitat and it might be protected from other diseases or disasters that might happen in its original habitat. Now, even if that happens, the spread or the way it travels, there could be other ways to maybe control it if there's a proper program to conserve these black bucks. But to put them in an environment that is hostile to them is as good as killing them.
Yeah, I think there's, I don't know the what the ecologists are thinking in this particular case. Um, uh, I'm not sure about that, but I think there has been, again, I shared the story about the Shavalsky's horses where they were introduced as a gamble to an area, and they managed to rewild that entire sort of hectares of area.
No, but the
um
Shavolki's horses used to be there before, right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, that is the thing. If they're filling a niche or a void, then it's fine. But if they're not filling a niche or a void, then they wouldn't survive. They wouldn't thrive. It's the
mm,
same with like with this black bugs, they're not actually filling a niche or void. They don't belong in that kind of landscape. They don't thrive in that kind of landscape. So it's very different.
yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. um I
And
think.
I think I mean if it's a and I don't know how these governments function, like what kind of researchers they have on board, what conservationists they have on board, what scientists they have on board. Like, I mean, who is telling them that this is a good idea? Like, I really want to know that part. Like, like who in the committee is saying, oh, black bugs don't belong here, but let's give it a try. Like, like let's see what happens.
Yeah, no, I think we need to make better decisions. That is for sure. And
And animals are not our guinea pigs to experiment on. Like, I mean, it's not like, oh, I don't have any other project today, so let's try and relocate these black bucks and see how they'll do. That's not how it works. Like, if you really care about conservation, if you actually care about your environment, there are a lot of pressing issues across Nepal anywhere, and you don't have to do this to actually, conserve the black bucks when they're critically endangered. Like, they are critically endangered.
mm, mm. Yeah, no, that is unfortunately, you know, how things are. I don't know if there is a mechanism for the public. If anyone's listening from Nepal, probably they would be able to tell us. But I don't know if there's a mechanism for the public to actually get involved in some shape or form, or stop this from happening. I don't know if there is, but you know, definitely
I
hoping.
mean, the conservationists are obviously against it, and there is like tension around it because that is what conservationists do and activists do. They know exactly what is good for the animal, but at the same time you're against the government, you're against officials who say it is a good decision. So you'll have to see at the end of the day who actually wins. So that is the point. Like, if you're up against the government, it actually depends. Sometimes the government makes good choices, but a lot of times I feel like mostly it makes bad choices regarding the environment, but sometimes it makes good choices. So we'll
Mm,
keep you updated. Like, another story, if we have an update, we'll let you know what happens.
right. Um, why don't we move on to next story, which comes from Australia, which basically says, um, Australia has the money to protect nature. It just isn't spending it, expert says. Wildlife expert Ewan Ritchie asserts Australia is failing miserably in biodiversity conservation, urging the international community to exert more pressure. Speaking on Monga Bay's newscast, Ritchie highlights Australia's exceptionally unique biodiversity, home to the koalas and platypuses. Despite the Australian government claiming progress towards Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework targets, Ritchie points to over 2,200 threatened species and 17 collapsing ecosystems, with koalas now endangered in key regions. He argues this decline is unacceptable for one of the wealthiest nations, which also possesses extensive scientific expertise. Researchers suggest 1% of the annual federal budget, um, Australian dollars 7 billion, is required for conservation. However, Australia currently allocates only 0.06% to nature. That's a far way, back. A figure expected to decline, underscoring a critical discrepancy in commitment versus need. I think this is
Not just Australia, but everywhere.
not just Australia, but I think especially Australia, where, you know,
You have really unique species that they really
correct.
niche. Yeah.
And I think being a wealthy nation, they have their, they have most of their human rights issues and human rights problems figured out, one would think.
Yeah, but isn't that the same with the US? And you can see how they're really plundering their ecosystems in the name of development or in the name of greed, because, I mean, it's a developed nation. All the import export happens in US dollars. It's, it's the number one nation, as we say. And yet, what is the kind of budgets or what is the kind of allocation that goes towards environment there? Like, all we hear is negative news from the US. I feel like Australia is still doing something, like,
Mm,
something. Like, I feel like it's still better than the US, but it's just that these countries don't care. Like, we've spoken about it in the first article, in the second article, that countries don't care. That is the problem. Like, if they really cared, there should be more than one person. There should be 10% of the allocation here, like, instead of anything else. But
mm,
but if the countries cared so much about its wildlife, about its ecology, about its and I think countries would only care if people actually came only for that. Like, if there was tourism because Australia has amazing wildlife, then yeah. So that is why the kangaroos and the koalas and the kokas, they're protected. But not every animal would get the same kind of benefit or the same kind of protection.
mm. Yeah, I think there is there is there are really two things that comes to mind when Australia is there. Australia, as far as Australia is concerned, one, they're a really wealthy country, and two, they're in the middle of the ocean, so um, no direct threat from any other countries around. So
Yeah, so you can
one would,
keep like small defense budgets. Like, you don't need huge
yeah,
defense budgets.
like again, that decision can be only made by Australia and its government, but one would think that you could significantly streamline, that's the word, you could significantly streamline the defense budget. And I mean, 1% of the annual federal budget, probably could be allocated towards nature. I mean, again, no, I wouldn't expect them to allocate like 1%, but 0.06% is, too far behind. Maybe 0.1%, as a start, or 0.2% as a start. I don't know. Maybe that's too much to expect, but
It is not just
um,
the money, it is the willingness, right? Like, I mean, if the willingness is there, the money would be there. The problem
mm,
is, like, you spoke about this also. What is that company with the dire wolves? I forgot.
mm,
What is the name?
colossal.
Yeah. So Colossal gets a lot of funding from rich
Mm,
people across the world because it promises of this future where it has animals from the past, like animals that are extinct and don't exist. And somehow we value that. Like, we value what is on Mars. We don't value what is on Earth. We value what's in the space. We value what we've already lost. But we don't value what is in the present. Like, like the billionaires, the countries, the government. humans, we don't value it, like, so right now they don't want to allocate that one person, but tomorrow if the koalas disappear, there'll be like a mad rush to actually bring them back. And that time they wouldn't care if 5 to 10% of their budget goes into actually reviving the koalas.
Yeah, I think that is the correct analysis. I think as soon as the prestige of that country depends on that particular species, or that particular, you know yeah, that particular animal or species or anything like that, people start um, people will start to
Take things
rally behind
seriously.
it,
Yeah.
take things seriously. In this, like, we always talk about, Australia and its interesting species, but um, some of us might know. I'm just sharing. I'll try to share a bigger image of this map. Yeah, I'm just sharing the map. There is an invisible sort of line that crosses through the Malacca Strait and sort of Bali, between Bali, through Indonesia. Basically, there's an invisible line in our
I knew about
continent.
I knew about the Wallace's line, but I didn't know there was another line called the Weber's line. That I didn't
Yeah,
know.
there is another one, but yeah, we are primarily, I think, the Wallace's line, um, here between like Borneo and through the Malacca state. It's only, I think, mm, like a couple of 100 kilometers, but even birds do not seem to want to cross this line for some reason. So birds from one side won't cross into the other. Birds or animals, marine, fish, a- anyone. This is really interesting. But they do not want to cross this line. This side not into the other side, and this side not into the other side. So on the left side, we have the tigers, the elephants, and all the iconic animals that we know, the African wildlife, the Indian wildlife, and the all the other wildlife. And the on the other side, we have these strange, weird animals like the platypus or kangaroo, or the
Wallace.
the koalas. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Thought I would share.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about the fish. I knew that the birds and the land animals, but
No,
the fish
even
as
even
well.
fish do not cross it.
Really, you saying there
Yeah,
are different species of fish across there and
correct,
here?
correct.
Okay, something interesting. I need to read up about it. But yeah, this Wallace line is a really, really, really strong, not theory, but it is actually reality. And that line or this divide changed what is found in Australia and what is found in the other parts to the left of it.
Hmm.
And that is why we have
Australia is
like
the most prominent, but there is like Papua New Guinea and all the other smaller islands as well. But yeah, in
yeah, and
theory,
I
that's
think I think
correct.
in theory that is also why like New Zealand also drifted apart, and it
Hmm.
has different wildlife. But this is one of the ways. I don't know what happened between New Zealand and Australia, that New Zealand was left with non-walking lazy birds, and Australia got all the big feisty crocodiles that can swim in the ocean. And
Uh-huh.
I don't know, like what all things they
No, I
have.
think
Like
New
they have
Zealand was under the ocean for a very long time. So that's why I think all the birds that colonized there was something that flew from Australia to New Zealand, and then
and
because
then
there were no
decided that we don't
predators,
want to walk, like we don't want to fly again, we just want to walk.
like, because the predators were in the sky. That's why they sort of decided that, we we will lose our flight. Some birds, you know, chose to keep their flight. Not all birds in New Zealand are flightless, but there are a lot of birds actually that do fly. But all the really threatened birds are unfortunately flightless. All the extinct birds, like all the extinct and like the um really big birds like the moa in New Zealand, which Colossal Biosciences is actually trying to bring back. All those kinds of birds are unfortunately, uh, flightless. Um, yeah, so I think this was really interesting for me as well to learn about the Wallace line but when I learned about it. But I think there are some unique. My point there is there's some unique pieces of line um, that a unique species of elephants. What am I saying? Unique species of marsupials and monotremes that live in Australia, which is worth preserving. Yeah.
Absolutely. And but yeah, um and Australia's wildlife can actually fight back. Like there are these videos of paraglider landing and a kangaroo punches him in the face.
Yeah,
And
kangaroos are supposed to be really strong, right? With
yeah,
all their muscles and things
yeah,
like that.
like have you seen how buff they look like if they're standing up? And the title of that video said that when you're landing after a paragliding session, the chances of a kangaroo not fighting with you are less, but not zero. So it just comes and pushes him, and then goes away. It's quite funny, but yeah. So I mean, Australia's wildlife is quite resilient as opposed to New Zealand's wildlife that needs to be monitored and taken care of, and everything else. But that doesn't mean that you stop taking care of them. Like you still need to allocate those budgets, and you need to make sure that they survive. 17 ecosystems collapsing is a huge number with 2,200 species on the line. Like this is probably why they've said that conservationists are having a burnout, because they're trying so hard to save this planet, but it's just a few of us who really care about the planet, and most people don't care. And it gets really tiring to just keep protecting, just keep talking, just keep wanting more from the governments, from other people, from everyone, that oh my god, we need to protect this.
That is absolutely true. Um, yeah, I think that's all we had to say about this topic.
Hmm.
Um, I think our guest is in the waiting room, so um, probably it's
A good
time sort
time
of
to introduce
we
him.
introduce him and yeah, sort of bring him on, and discuss the paper that we are supposed to discuss with him. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Just okay. Today we're joined by Kathan Bandopadhyay. Uh, if I've said your name wrong, please correct me later. A postdoctoral research associate at the Illinois Natural History Survey, working on statewide fur bearer ecology and population dynamics in Illinois. He recently completed his PhD in zoology and physiology at the University of Wyoming, where his research focused on the ecology, distribution, and coexistence of mesocarnivores in human dominated landscapes of India. Kathan's work broadly centers on carnivore ecology and conservation, with a particular emphasis on how species, especially small wild cats native to India, persist and interact within multi use landscapes shaped by human activity. His research integrates camera trapping, spatial capture recapture, occupancy modeling, and habitat suitability approaches to understand species distributions, density, and niche partitioning across ecological gradients. Prior to his doctoral work, Kathan completed his MSc in Wildlife Management and Conservation at the University of Reading. He has extensive field and analytical experience across India, UK, and Namibia, including working with the Wildlife Institute of India and the Cheetah Conservation Fund, where he studied predator prey dynamics, large carnivore populations, and conservation strategies for species such as cheetahs and leopards and other lesser known carnivores. In his current role, he combines large scale data sets from camera traps, GPS telemetry, and community science to model the distribution, movement, and habitat use of fur bearers, contributing to applied wildlife management and conservation planning.
Hi, nice to meet you, Meghna.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry if I'm getting your pronunciation wrong. You can please correct me
Yeah,
for
no, no,
it.
you're absolutely correct.
Okay, great. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. So whenever we begin, we always want to hear about the journey of the researcher and what has led them to their current research interests. Like, what has this journey been for you, and why did you travel on this particular journey?
Yeah, great question. I mean, being born and brought up in cosmopolitan Calcutta, I never thought that I would end up in wildlife science. And honestly, my family had no orientation regarding forests and how forest systems works. I think the pivotal point for my career would be when I was in the third year of my undergraduate degree from presidency. I studied animal behavior and got really interested in animal behavior and all the pioneer works by Nicholas Tinbergen and Leonard Correns back in 60s and 70s in Oxford actually really inspired me to know nature deeply. Um, and through circumstances, inspiration, and I would say tremendous luck, I ended up getting the Felix Scholarship for outstanding students who actually gets a chance to study their masters in University Reading or University of Oxford. I went to Reading to study my masters, which actually kind of a turning point in my career. And afterwards, I came back to India, started working with wildlife institutes with Dr. Jhala on several carnivore ecology projects. And afterwards, I did my PhD on lesser known carnivores from India. So that's more or less my journey in a nutshell. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's an interesting journey because you know, and I think it's a very common journey as well in terms of the people who are really we have found talking to researchers that once initiated into the wildlife aspect of things, it's our second nature to sort of try and go back into that conservation and conservation uh, yeah direction. So it's really I think it was really interesting to hear your version of the journey as well. And right now it's worth mentioning that I think you are in the States, so it is really late for you, so you have taken the time out to spend an hour with us. So yeah, really thankful for that as well. I think talking specifically about your paper and your work with small cats, I think there is a narrative there where big cats like tigers, leopards, cheetahs, lions sort of capitalize on all the attention in the media populace. So why do small cats matter for why should the general public be concerned about small cats is a question that a layman would ask. And yeah, probably you could enlighten us on that.
Yeah, very good question. I would take, this is probably going to be the pivotal point of this discussion, that why do small cats matter and why should we care about them?
Hmm.
So a little bit of, if I go a little bit back, the importance of carnivore conservation. The carnivores are ecological, economical, and ethical epitome of our system. They are key or apex of the food and energy chain, but they occur in low densities and large inviolate space are required to maintain a viable population. They are surrogate to the biodiversity conservation and often act as an umbrella species, like you mentioned, the species like tiger, leopard, lion, snow leopard in respective landscapes.
Mhm.
But when it comes to India, our average protected area size is 239 square kilometers. We don't have protected areas like Serengeti or Yellowstone, which is like 40,000 square kilometers, 70,000 square kilometer. Our uh, protected area is for nearly about 5% of our land mass, and 1% of it is core critical tiger habitat. And all of these carnivores, sorry, share the landscape with 1.5 billion people with a GDP of 4.6 trillion, which sets the stage between economic development and nature conservation.
Mhm.
But we do have a lot of positive things on our side. The first thing that India did, unlike other Southeast Asian countries, is a lot of green legislation, including the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, Water Control and Pollution Act of 1974, Forest Act of 1980, and Campa, Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Act of 2006. So all of this act actually not only protects the species, but also the habitat the species inhabits, and also the people who are actually interacting with those species in a day-to-day basis. And of course, not out of point to mention that there are, of course, religious and cultural reverences towards this wildlife, which
Mhm.
actually make these species as viable in the landscapes. So the three religion that came out of the subcontinent, the Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, they treat human beings as custodians of nature. So reverence towards wildlife is very much prevalent in any mythological or cultural ethos of the country. But we do have our shares of problems, like we are the world's largest livestock population, which with a 530 odd million animals, cattle, buffaloes, goats, sheep, and world's largest free-ranging dog population, estimates around 60 million dogs, and both and these are all human subsidized, and so it's a global hotspot for human livestock dog wildlife interaction. So it's much more complicated than that. Now coming back to your question about how the small felids are standing in this debate. The small felids are actually, or the small wild cats, they act out as a middle agent. Okay, they act out as a balance between top down effect of the predators and bottom up effect of the herbivory. So they balance it out. So they also are surrogates to the biodiversity conservation through keeping a lot of vector-borne disease transmission at check. They keep the rodent
Mhm.
population at check. They keep the snake population at check. They keep a lot of small insect population at check, which is very much critical to for a lot of tropic cascade and a lot of food and other interactions that we see in nature. And they also gives protection of critical habitats. So in this way, we should really care about smaller felids and bringing their predicament to the notice of the nation, because they are lesser known, they are data deficient, and they are not as charismatic as their larger counterparts. So the funding generally is not coming to them. So that's
Mhm.
why nationwide limelight should be given to them as well.
Mm.
because they are doing all of these things, and no one and most of the world is overlooking it.
Mm.
So that was kind of the inspiration or the preface of this study.
Mm. Mm.
And how do you think like that public perception could change? Like obviously there was a whole campaign for the tigers, and then people actually started saving the tigers. They decided that tigers were important. What is it that can be done similarly so people start campaigning for the jungle cat or the fishing cat or other small cats?
Well, I will. I mean, I will quote one line from the Riding of the Tigers book. That I mean, the faith of any carnivores. I mean, I'm not doing the exact quoting. I don't remember the exact quote, but something along those lines, that the faith of any carnivores does not depend on conservationists or scientists. It depends on how society views and values them, and how political will is motivated to conserve them. So if the political will is motivated to conserve them, not only in terms, no, I'm not talking in terms of India, but globally, as well as if the people want them, I mean, they will remain. I mean, they have survived many geological, historical events. But they will remain. But the thing is to promote them. How to promote them is like, I think basic awareness, basic educational campaigns are very much warranted. We don't know much about this. I mean, general public don't know much about the species ecology. They know a lot about tigers, information, misinformation, wrong information, but they know what tiger is. And but they don't know much about jungle cats. They don't know much about fishing cats or leopard cats. So those kind of informations, bringing, kind of doing workshops at school level, at high school level, at college level, at university level, is very much required, as well as bringing funding to protect them. And I mean, in a multi-use landscapes, that's the hardest part to do, because, excuse me, so in the protected area, where tiger is present or lion is present, you will have an umbrella effect. So if you protect the tiger, if you protect the prey, so the habitat and the habitat, so the sympatric species are going to be protected. So that's the whole idea of the, the umbrella species ecology. But in a multi-use landscape, that's hard, because you are mixing people with wildlife. You are mixing human interests with wildlife. So how there you will conserve, why, I mean, smaller, lesser known cats, lesser known felids. That's the main challenge to do.
And has there been any sort of thinking or any sort of models that India can take inspiration from? I know we were discussing a similar problem that Europe is facing with their wildcats, the European wildcat. We were covering a short piece of news, but is there a model or some thinking done around how the sort of this can be achieved? And I think you mentioned a point around like funding as well. I think that also sits at the core of everything, where it's a chicken and egg game, that if you get funding then we can do all these things, but we have to do all these things to get the funding, and so on and so forth. Yeah, just wanted to know your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, but I think if you compare India with the rest of the world, India has done a lot of work in terms of
Mm.
carnivore ecology, be it Asiatic lion recovery in Gir, be it tiger recovery throughout India, bringing back cheetah, which was extirpated for 70 odd years, the snow leopard population. So all of these initiatives by government of India, I mean, they are conservation success stories, and they are models to the rest of the world. uh,
Mm.
so but the small cats are kind of a bit complicated than this large cat systems, because they persist in human dominated landscapes. Other than caracal, they are not in immediate kind of threat. All of these small cats that we have in India, but there are persistent kind of emerging threats that are coming, like hybridization with domestic cat, road mortality, stray dogs. So all of these problems, and stray dogs and livestock. So all of these problems are gonna have. Uh, we have to combat those problems in a way so that it's a level playing field for the small cats as well. So if you take one by one, I think the most important threat for the small cats at this moment is the stray dog. So the stray dogs, what they do, that they outcompete the wildlife population, and to minimize that, you have to do capture neuter release program, and in a nationwide scale, or in a within the periphery of a national park or wildlife sanctuary, you have to adopt some kind of culling procedures as well, so that dogs don't mix up with wildlife and spread diseases like canine distemper, mange, and others. So these are the challenges that we have to deal with. And there are several empirical and applied studies from India, especially from the central part of India, from Maharashtra, from Madhya Pradesh, from Rajasthan, which actually proved the fact that dogs outcompete all of these smaller carnivores, not only small felids, but also foxes, jackals, hyenas, or this whole guild. So dog population need to be controlled. I mean, and we don't know the extent of hybridization. So hybridization is also can be a serious issue. We do have a lot of stray cats also in India. So hybrid cats are actually compromising the genetic lineages, and the deleterious allele that is fixed, that is getting kind of getting a chance to fix themselves within the system, that actually can compromise the species heritage and lineage and bloodline as well. So that also needs to be taken care of, but we don't know what extent that is true. I don't think it's a big problem at this point, but the number one challenge in from the Indian context will be stray dog population control.
We had one question regarding that. We were talking about the wild cats, and we spoke about how if different cat species were to meet, then the offsprings are usually sterile, like in a liger. They're sterile. Does How does it work with domestic and wild cats? Are they very similar, and does their mating process actually produce healthy offsprings that can keep reproducing?
Yes, it does. To answer this question, I again I would do a backward step. So in India, whenever you declare a protected area or a national park or a wildlife sanctuary, so the people who are living inside the protected areas, the government incentivize them to move outside of the protected area. So it's a complete voluntary incentivized relocation, not eviction, completely voluntarily monetarized relocation. So when they leave, they actually, I mean, they were living there for a couple of years, so they do have pet cats, dogs, and cattle. Most of the time they leave those things behind when they move to cities and start a new life. And these animals interact with wild cats, and they produce hybrid cats. So they will look alike the wild population, but they are not. If you look very closely, their coat pattern or their unique markings in their body, you can see that this is not a jungle cat, this is a hybrid cat, and they can keep on reproducing. How this mutation works, why the hybrid cats are more, uh, can hybrid cats outcompete the wild variations? We don't know that. In what extent the hybridization is present throughout the country, we don't know that. So that's why I said that we don't know what extent it is a problem, but it can be a problem.
And you also mentioned sort of in line with sort of estimating the cat population. I think one of the major gaps there is also that which you sort of highlight in your paper. You estimate roughly around like 3 lakh or 300,000 cats. Sort of could you elaborate on like how confident is that number, or has there been any plans of an official sort of survey of these smaller felids in the Indian context specifically?
Yeah, so good question. So the to understand that, as for the viewers, I am saying that
Mm-hmm.
the larger cats like leopards, tigers, they do have stripe patterns or rosette patterns in their body. So you can
Mm.
actually photograph them. They take selfies in front of the camera trap, and then you can ID them using the different patterns, and then you can do a mark recapture analysis using different statistical program. But the problem with these jungle cats, not problem, but the uniqueness with these jungle cats is like they don't have unique markings in their body. So what we did, that we did a nationwide habitat suitability surveys from the presence locations that we have, through personal observations, through telemetry records, and largely from the nationwide camera trapping survey published in Jhala et al. Science paper. So we kind of integrate these all kinds of data sets into one and model those presence location with ecologically relevant covariates, with the covariates that, based on our experience, kind of told us that these will be important for those cats habitat suitability. So then in the habitat suitability model, we actually modeled what is the amount of area that is suitable for jungle cat throughout India. And then we put out some collars for jungle cats, so we know the ranging patterns of them, the home ranges of males jungle cat and female jungle cat. Usually males, not usually, but most of the time, the males will have larger home ranges than female, which is pretty typical of cat family.
Mm-hmm.
And then you actually do a delta method analysis, where you take the variability in the habitats and the variability in the GPS scholars home range data, and you compute the population numbers. It's an estimate, so that's where the population is likely gonna be. So I am pretty confident that, even if you, this is the best technique that is available for
Mm.
estimating population size for these kind of unmarked species right now. We can maybe redo this process in every 15 years or 20 years, and this will be a snapshot, so that we can always look back to it and see whether the population is declining or increasing, which is a very much important conservation data which dictates
Yeah.
policies and stuff.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting point that you raised. Like, what is, especially like, it is sort of, as you said, like a combination of techniques that you have to use in order to correctly track data and even track the numbers. And even then you might only get, like, maybe there is a 1-2% variability in that number as well. um so I think, speaking about like habitats, you paper sort of points out that Madhya Pradesh is quite high in the population list, or the density of these Asiatic wildcats. Is there any particular reason that you managed to identify why that like Madhya Pradesh makes a good habitat, or the population density is so high there, or it's just a coincidence?
No, it's not a coincidence. I mean, if you see the maxent and the random forest, these two methods that we used, that you will kind of understand why this is happening in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Orissa, which are the three most, I would say, strongholds for this jungle cat population.
Mhm.
Jungle cat actually can tolerate low to mild human pressure, but once the human pressure goes kind of out of the window, the jungle cat is not going to persist much. And it does well with the temperature. I mean, maximum temperature of the warmest month. So once the temperature increases, jungle cat occurrences also increases and then reaches an asymptote. It has a kind of a juxtapositional relationship with the minimum temperature of the coldest month. It can also tolerate low to mild livestocks, but once the livestock density skyrocketed, then it will the jungle cat occurrences will go down, and jungle cat mostly prefer dry, arid to semi-arid landscape, but they are widespread. They can be found throughout India, but in all this model we have seen that the with the annual precipitation, once the precipitation goes more than, I think, 5,000 millimeters, then the occurrences goes down. So all of these conditions actually go suited very well with these arid to semi-arid landscape and land pattern uses. And I mean, the states which has more urban centers, more road connectivities, more night lights, all of this, there the jungle cat's habitat suitability is less. So that resulted lesser number of jungle cats, where the habitat suitability or the area wise habitat suitability is more, then there you have greater number of jungle cats. So that's how this model works. So yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I I wanted to know, why exactly do the jungle cats want to wander out of the forest into human settlements, and why do they have that kind of mixed land use? Like why do they not stay in the jungle and prefer being in the human areas? Or is it because we
So
have encroached on those areas? Yeah, sorry.
no, I mean, they don't prefer living in the multi-used landscapes. I mean, they are generalist. So they are not habitat specialists. They are
Mm.
generalists. So they do live in forest, but in the multi-use landscape, what happens that the pressure of the larger predators is not there. So and it is all, of course, much easier for jungle cats to catch chickens, poultries, rodents, which are very much prevalent in the agricultural belt. And jungle cat don't need to, always be in fear, what we in ecology call landscape of fear of the larger cat or the other predators. I mean, to a lesser extent. So that maybe is the reason. Another reason is jungle cat is very adaptable. jungle cat. I mean, if you see the list of where the jungle cats are, you will see. I mean, from semi-arid to arid landscape to wet landscape to mangrove forests to rainforest. Jungle cat is everywhere, from northeast to southern India to western India to eastern parts of India. Jungle cats are everywhere. So they are pretty adaptable with the climate, with the temperatures, with the human pressure, and with the livestock densities as well. So those are all of the reasons which make them a successful species as of now. Uh, but the emerging threats are always gonna be there.
And I think you mentioned this as well, like as you said in the right now, that they quite often are present in the sort of multi-used and shared landscapes. And one of the other questions you mentioned, sort of how they keep the sort of the rodent and the snake populations in check, or help in that regard thereof. Is there a incentive for maybe the agriculturalists or the farmers to I guess coexist with this cat, or especially like be reverent towards this particular species of small cats, because they are, I would imagine they would be helping. It would be a symbiotic relationship with sort of the farmers in those landscapes. Is that the case that we are seeing, or is there sort of killings that are going on in terms of overlapping landscapes?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. I don't think there is organized widespread killing that is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Most in most cases, in my opinion, they're tolerant, and if they're not tolerant, they're indifferent about the
Mm.
presence of jungle cat in the agricultural belt. But yes, when the large carnivores actually do predate on livestock, the Indian farmer gets a compensation. But it's very hard to get it for jungle cats, because it is very hard to prove that jungle cats actually killed it, because
Yeah.
there are many similar sized animals which are there, which can kill poultries and smaller livestock. So you need a very trained ecologist to actually prove that it is actually a cat. I mean, the most he can say it's a cat. I mean, if the multiple cats are there, then it's a very very hard job to do,
Yeah.
practically impossible job to do. So those are all the factors. These are difficult factors to tackle with. But I would say that again, what I started, that campaigns, a lot of these confusions, lack of clarities can be resolved through different kind of sessions, small sessions, posters, leaflets, which is really helpful to uh, find that how jungle cat use agricultural landscape, and in and around farms, and that can keep the rodent population in check, thus protecting crops. So these landscapes that lie outside of the protected area and harbors uh, several threats, including fragmented habitats, speeding vehicles on road, poaching. I mean, not market driven poaching, but incidental poaching, I'm saying. So these factors need to be introspected.
Mm. That's interesting. That's interesting. And I think one of the challenging things that comes to my mind, at least, is sort of you touched on this, but like policy making and so on. So when their most of their habitat, most of these cats' habitats sort of lie outside of the core protected areas per se, um, what does that mean for like policy making specifically, if we're concerned to these species of cats?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there are a lot of things that the policymakers should be taking notes from. That India is an emerging economy, so of
Mm-hmm.
course there is going to be emerging economical needs, emerging energy needs, and infrastructural needs more predominantly. So when you build any kind of linear infrastructure, how the several species' habitat can be disrupted and how you mitigate it. Because I mean, you have to mitigate. I mean, in order to maintain a balance. So that is very much important for kind of a harmonious coexistence between not only these jungle cats, but all of these lesser known species and human interests. So I would say that the whenever a species lives more or less outside of the protected area, then the conservation challenges actually quadruples, because then it is not protected under the wildlife law, then it is not living in a system where it can easily mate, hunt, survive, all of these things, because sometimes they need to find mates also, which is like 50 kilometers away. I'm giving an example, extreme example, but let's just take that. And between these 50 kilometers there is an urban center, there are road networks, so the cat need to cross all of that to find a mate. So all of these things are actually very challenging. So there are ways to go around about it. In several cases, like in other countries, like if you know that in the Andean mountains, Andean cats are pretty rare. The like Iberian lynx population went through a big rock bottom one time. So they tried different things. They tried reintroduction, they tried conservation breeding to boost up the population, and there are other species like European wildcat that they're planning to reintroduce in Scottish Highlands. I don't know the status of that, but there are a lot of work that are going on across the world. Um, I, which can promote the small cat conservations as well. Um, but as I said, that other than the caracal population in India, no other small cats are under immediate threat. So yeah, we need species specific management plan. So we don't know the most about any of these cats. We don't know the genetics, we don't know the disease ecology, we don't know. We don't know now. You know the glimpses of ecology and a population number, but we don't know much about their diet either. So all of these things, all of this ecological information need to be collected, and then we can see how to actually, what are the challenges they are facing, and how to mitigate them in a climate changing scenario, in a 50-year scale, in a 20-year scale. Those plans can be done, and they can be included into national carnivore policy and other aspects.
Do you do you perhaps think that how the tigers, the lions, or the snow leopards, they're rarer? Like you have to go on a safari, or you have to go tracking, or somehow you have to go to see them. But and in opposition, like jungle cats are very simple, similar to your house cats. size wise, looks wise. Do you think that could be one of the reasons that people, one, probably are not aware, and second, might not be as interested to protect because of the rarity perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I actually stand. In the middle of this argument. I have done this argument earlier. So the thing is, in a country full of tigers, lions, snow leopards, and leopards, it is pretty hard to promote a jungle cat. But or do safaris only for jungle cats. But I'm not saying that is not possible, but it is a bit hard because public interests and all the rigmaroles what we see every day through public media and newspaper media, audiovisual media. I mean, it's all about large cats. We don't see much about small cats. So generally, public perception, public interest are with large cats, but not so much with the small cats. So these are the aspects. How can public perceptions change? These are big questions. I haven't really I don't really know, but I think that we have to do several things to promote it. Science alone cannot do it. I mean, podcasts like this, several news articles, several charity programs, small educational camps. I think can go a long, long way.
Mm, mm. And I think especially difficult, um, as you said, for the jungle cat, as it's so similar looking, as Meghna was saying as well, to a house cat. Or like, I mean, the features overall as well. Whereas maybe the leopard cat or the fishing cat, maybe somewhat of a more of a, I guess, attractive looking, or a different enough that they would draw attention as well. So I think you point out a very crucial um, gap there as well. But you touched on sort of the importance of knowing the behavior, ecology, and so on and so forth. So could you sort of, maybe for our audience as well, because we talk about this quite a lot in our podcast when we cover sort of articles as well, for our audience, like, why is that important, not only for the specifically for the wildcat species, Asiatic wildcat species, but in general, why is
Mhm.
research into those specific things about a species important? And like you mentioned, you touched upon sort of species specific management plans and so on and so forth. Maybe for our audience, if you could give a layman's brief, maybe.
Yeah, I will. I will. I will. Yeah, 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 yeah. I will. I mean, very in a nutshell, I will say that. I mean, we
Hmm.
need to know where the species is thriving. We need to know how the species is responding to the climate. What climate is actually a suitable climate for the species, where the species cannot survive, so that
Hmm.
in the event of an environmental catastrophe or a disease catastrophe or any kind of human induced change, we can come up with a conservation plan. But otherwise, we don't have a plan. If you don't have information, you don't have a plan. So once you know their reproductive system, their morphology, their disease, their ecology, their conservation status, then you can come up with a comprehensive plan with different strategies, exit strategies, as well as if plan A does not work, then what will be the immediate rapid plan B, all of that. So I mean, these are well defined when you reintroduce a species. Then there are certain things that you need to think about, where your source population will come from. If you're I mean the I mean, do you know that your source population is genetically diverse or behaviorally adaptable or not? Okay, how your source population is, if it's a carnivore, gonna uh, at par with the prey base, with the habitats? Do you have societal acceptance for this reintroduction or not? Uh, Whether the political will is with you on this reintroduction or not? And what are the major challenges gonna be after you reintroduce? What will be the post release monitoring system, and what you will call a success, short term success, long term success, what you will call a failure, and what will be your exit strategy. So these are all the things that you need to come up with when you do a species recovery plan. But it is based on data, it's based on evidences, it's not based on anecdotes or revelations. So if we don't have data, if we don't have logic to it, that then in the event of any kind of catastrophe or any kind of if I mean environment density dependence or independent events, we will not able to come up with any kind of plan. So that's why collecting all of this ecological information is very crucial.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. I think yeah, that's really well put, and we have been trying to sort of touch on that in previous episodes as well. But yeah, thank you for sort of elaborating it and getting into it in a nutshell. You mentioned sort of India has been uh, very successful, if that's the right term, in carnivore conservation and sort of being a model for the world in carnivore conservation. In terms of the small felid conservation, my question is two part. Where can India? Do you think India can sort of be the pioneering voice in the small felid conservation world as well? And if yes, then what do you think is the top thing India has to get right in order to achieve or to reach that point in the future?
I think so. India is, I mean, considering the number of species that we have in India, we have 15 wildcat species, now 16. So if you take the top five big cat out, so we have nine small cat species, 9 to 10 small cat species. Um, so in that, because we have also lynx distribution at
Mm-hmm.
some parts of India. So and we have Pallas's cat, which is not studied in this study as well. So I think there, if you go look into Google Scholar, you will find a little bit of information about all the cats except the maybe the golden cat and marble
Mm-hmm.
cat. We don't have much information on golden cat and marble cat. But other than that, there are, I would not say significant amount of information, but some kind of information on rusties, on leopard cats, on fishing cat, on caracals, jungle cats, etc. So, considering the number of species we have, now we know where they are in a countrywide scale. What are their emerging threats or their threats can be, and how we need to tackle it. So, that's a good starting point. But we need to put transmitters on cats to look into their habitat. I mean movement choices in a much finer scale. What are they choosing in terms of hunting, what are they choosing in terms of denning, what are they choosing in terms of mating, so we know the optimal conditions of the species life. And then we also need to put a lot of effort on the genomics part of it, the disease part of it. So if we can do these two things, I would say that India will lead the small cat conservation as well. But at the same time, here in states, we have two kinds of small cats: bobcats and ocelots. Ocelot population is endangered, and people are working on it. In South Texas for a long time. And bobcat is widespread, like jungle cats, what we have in the country. But we have many, many cats. So compared to the other Southeast Asian countries, we have done a lot, but there are still things that needs to do, and that those are more or less the policy making steps, uh, where small cats need to be integrated in the national carnivore conservation plan, and there should be some recommendations and MOUs, and also the uh, some kind of understanding that what are the next step, and there should be a clear deadline for those things. So these are all bureaucratic and policy making approaches that needs to come to safeguard the lesser known species.
Really
Great.
interesting. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, thank you for like all these detailed answers you've been giving. What is like your current and your future plans in terms of research? And are you going to be researching more about the Indian cats, or are you like switching species? What are your plans currently and going ahead?
Good question. Future, I don't know. Uh, but currently, I am working on bobcats, red foxes, and coyotes in the state of Illinois, their distribution density patterns, and how they are also navigating in a multi-use landscape, which is mostly an agricultural landscape of Midwest America. And I am involved in a different a lot of projects across the world, be it small cat or larger cat, and some of my publications are currently under review. So yeah, we'll be working on several species, and species which are data deficient, and where conservation actions are needed to bringing their predicament to the notice of the nation.
Okay. So, thank you for all the time you've given us. Thank you for explaining everything in detail. All the best for your present and whatever the future may hold for you. And yeah, I mean, anything you want to add, Oops?
Yeah, no. I think the main thing is that taking the time such late hours of the night, that's really we are really thankful for that. And I think, yeah, as Meghna said, best of luck from us for your current and future research, and thank you for answering all our questions patiently.
Thank you for having me. it was
Yeah,
it was my pleasure. Thank you.
yeah, our producer will yeah, help you now. But thank you so much. Thank you again. Yeah. So that was Kathan and his research about small cats. There's actually a story behind, me and Oops actually went to see fishing cats in Bhitarkanika National Park in Orissa. It's not very well known. It's actually very, very remote and a very small operation. They actually get you onto this boat with this weird step ladder that doesn't even have a handle. You remember?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, it's quite an
it's the Indian
experience.
jugaad, one would call it.
Yeah, it's quite an experience, but I honestly think that if that could not become popular, but if at least that could be used to kind of bring some attention to the fishing cats and smaller cats, that would be great. Like, how the civet cats are actually known for their poop and their coffee. I think there are other cats that can be known for other things. But it was great
um
talking to Katun about,
Cotton,
yeah.
yeah, I think it was great in terms of getting more of a, and I think we have not done it but before with any of our guests, but like getting more of a perspective, like an inner look into the cat conservation landscape
Yeah,
of India, you know?
yeah. And the fact that he was very honest about everything, like, he wasn't sugarcoating anything. He was very honest that these are the problems, these are the numbers, if they're least concerned or not, how the public views it. It was a very honest conversation. So yeah, and I mean, I think I love the part how he said that it's very hard in India, when you have snow leopards and tigers and lions, for the little cats to shine. So that is a thing, and I think we just take our country very lightly, but the kind of wildlife, man, I mean, it's
Mm,
just something. Like, it is like, and just in the same country there will be species that are found in some parts and not in other parts. Even the Palace cat that he was talking about, it's
yeah.
really rare, but you find them in the remote northern parts of India. So yeah, that was great, that was interesting. And I think it's actually almost time for us to wrap our show up as well. But I hope you guys had as much fun as we had, like asking those questions and getting those insights.
Yeah, yeah. It was great. It was great. Yeah, and as Meghna said, like, um, and as Cotton said as well, like a lot of the other small cats, like fishing cats, like um, leopard cats, caracals, lynx,
Rusties, yeah.
you know,
Rusties,
rusties,
leopards,
and
yeah.
all these species, for lack of a better term, they are like sexy for photographers. So there is a tourism aspect to them, but I don't think, again, revealing my own biases here, but don't think I would go for a safari or a trip to photograph, jungle cats, because they're so widespread, number one, and number two, there's nothing really worth photographing in my view about them, or they're not photogenic, so that's, I think, one of the other things that comes into play, where the tourism aspect is hard to be developed, and which Cawthon sort of pointed out as well. So yeah, but yeah, as Meghna was saying, it was a very insightful conversation, and yeah, I think it's almost time to wrap up our show. Mm.
Yep. On that note, obviously, I'm going to be talking about cats, and I'm going to be asking about if you knew or if you know the different types of little small cats that we have in India, and if you've interacted, if you've seen, if you've actually gone on one of those safaris, not really a safari, but like, how you go see the fishing cats. Has this episode interested you to know more about them? And would you be more interested in protecting them even if they look very similar to your house cat? Actually, that should be the reason you want to protect them, because they look very similar to
I
the
mean,
house
don't
cat.
try to adopt them and don't try to keep them as pets, but yeah,
They're wild.
they're
Leave them
wild.
wild. Yeah, leave them wild. But yeah, we would love to know about your experiences with jungle cats and what you think about them.
Yeah, and as always, subscribe to our channel and turn the notifications on if you haven't done it already, and follow us on all the different social media platforms. We go live everywhere all at once, so you'd be able to catch us wherever you follow us. If do consider leaving a comment, as Meghna said, it really helps understand what our audiences are liking and disliking, but also it helps spread the awareness around as well. If you're listening to a recorded version of this podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, do consider leaving a rating. Again, it helps with spreading out this message out into as many people as it can be consumed by. And yeah, share this with someone who sort of agrees with you on all these different conservation and climate change topics, or with someone who does not agree with you, just to have a different perspective being shared with them. And other than that, that's it for today, and we will see you next Sunday, same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.